Cylinder heads. What is the best way to clean them? Let's talk about it. Today's video is brought to you by CamaroCon. If you guys are interested in attending the West Coast's largest gathering of Camaros and Firebirds from all generations, hit up CamaroCon.com and learn more information about this show. What's going on, guys? Matt over here with Lethal Garage, and today I want to talk about cylinder heads, and mainly because I'm kind of obsessive about having new, clean looking things. Now, I'm not successful every single time I go about it, but as many of you know, I'm in the middle of rebuilding my LT1. So we found some metal shavings. We found out it was the metal pieces from the sprocket of the timing chain, because the timing chain here was loose because the tensioner was jacked up. And yeah, we also found some issues with the lifters. So at the end of the day, I was happy we pulled apart the whole motor. I mean, I guess it's good, and it kind of sucks that it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, but it is what it is. We pulled it apart, found some issues. Now we're gonna build her better, bigger, not bigger, better, stronger, and hopefully last even longer. That being stated, I want to talk today about cylinder heads. So this is a set of aftermarket cylinder heads. Unfortunately, I didn't think about shooting this video, and I sent my stock factory heads off to Frankenstein ED to go get done. Those cylinder heads didn't look all that bad, but they were stock factory cylinder heads. Now, these are stock factory cylinder heads off a C7 Corvette. Same exact heads that you'll find on our Camaros because they use the same exact motor. The difference being here is that Frankenstein ED has gotten a hold of these and did their stage 2 package on them. So you may be asking, well, what does stage 2 package mean? Well, for the most part, porting cylinder heads, and you're not going to see it too much because these are still dirty, but you can see here, and apologies about the lighting and the focus and all that, but as you can see, I now have the head in some light, and you can kind of see the port job. Again, it's still pretty dark in there, but what they do is they open up these ports, and in that they go all the way down. Usually it's done by a CNC machine. You could kind of see on the inside where this one got done and areas that didn't, but there's aspects and areas where they take meat off the inside and allow better or more airflow through the system. And in that, this is Frankenstein. You can tell it's Frankenstein. It clearly is marked. They have serial numbers and everything. They can generate a lot more airflow and in turn a lot more power. Now in this instance, these sets of heads also have manly valves in them, but you can see it's a little bit dirty. So these were pulled off a C7 Corvette, and in that, since they've gotten to the Lethal Garage, I used Brake Clean and did a quick rub down with just a terry cloth towel to see how dirty they were. But you're always going to see this buildup, and that's where the gasket was initially. And I'm a big fan. Like, I love getting new stuff. Like when these came from Frankenstein initially, they had a very shiny finish like this. Get in there, like that, all over, because they were brand new. They just came off the machine. They were basically ported and probably decked, and I don't know the full scope of what they done with this setup, but I do know it's their stage 2 for the C7, and in that I want to go in and adjust a few things, or not adjust, but clean, I should say, because I kind of want that clean look. Unfortunately, there's no way to salvage this machine finish by being able to get these marks from the gaskets off. And the reason why you want to kind of scrub these down and make them look clean is you want that surface as smooth as possible, so that way it mats up with your new gasket and your block on your vehicle. Now, in my instance, my block sitting over here is getting sent out to be machined. They're going to check out the main crank, bore and line, make sure it's all straight, no problems, but they're also going to go through and clean the whole block, so it should come back looking like brand new from the factory. Now in this instance, I just want to clean these up myself to make them look as clean as possible without spending really too much time on them. Now, I could take a polishing wheel and attempt to polish and get them shiny again, but I don't think that's going to take off all the carbon buildups. Now, the carbon buildup on this is not nearly as bad as some of the heads I've seen. There's been some nasty ones, especially if you're grabbing an old motor that just has an abundance of fuel just exploding in there. You usually will have lots of gunk and buildup. So this video might not be for you if you have one of those, but again, the process will remain the same, using just a basic scuff pad and some cleaner and lightly going over the head to remove any of the particles so it looks nice and shiny and new. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up. I'm going to get my cleaning and my scuff pads, and we're going to go to town on this and see the before and after. Now today I'm going to be using some Master Pro 6x9 scuffing pads. They come to you in a ginormous pad, but I like having a more workable pad, especially when you're starting to get into smaller places like the heads. So I'll cut one pad up into 4 pieces, and then I just use a simple brake parts cleaner as my agent to allow me to clean the head. It works really good in getting the gunk and grime off. It doesn't necessarily get any of the press stuff up against the metal, but that's where the scuff pad comes in. Now, using the scuff pad, it's going to eliminate the bright shine and it's going to have a muted finish when done, but it's still going to look good, and you know you're going to have everything off of it. So we're just going to go ahead and go work at this and see how it does. Okay, so in cleaning the heads, basically what we're going to do is we're going to get all of the gunk and grime that's left from the gaskets. So you can see where the tight seal was made, around where all of the coolant holes are. And I'm literally going to take my scuff pad and I'm going to spray my cleaner onto the pad and not necessarily the block. And you're not pushing hard. You're kind of just putting just light finger pressure on here and letting the pad just kind of do its work. If you push hard, you really risk getting the getting deep gouges into the heads, and that's not what we want. That's not the purpose. Our purpose here is just to take off that compressed layer that made the marks into the metal in the first place. So because I'm using a brake cleaner, it does like to fade pretty quickly and evaporate. But you can see really quick already, it's getting to look really good. So reapply. And I am wearing some protective gloves. If you're using any sort of abrasive materials or anything, chemicals and stuff like that, highly recommend wearing a glove. So I'm just going to clean this upper one for the purpose of the video here, and we can do a before and after. Now the downside is with the scuff pad you're going to get a rough non-polished surface. Now you could have this polished out if you really wanted to, and at the end of the day I kind of had to ask myself, why would I want that, considering I'm not going to see it? As long as I know the surface is free of contaminants. Now we can go into the head where the valves are. I always like to warn you, when you're going in where the valves are, you really don't want to force the pad into areas that it doesn't belong. Reason being is you don't want to mess up your valves. And that's a whole different video for a different day on how to clean the actual valves themselves around the bottoms and the top of the seals. Oh, I lost a chunk of glove. And yeah, you're gonna see dirt and grime built up even after you clean it. You'll be like, oh, it looks like crap, I go over it again. Well, that's where you could take your brake cleaner and hit it and it just melts all that loose material off. So the nice thing is you can go through a couple times and kind of go through the areas. And again, you could tell they've also ported the inside of the valves to allow better flow. And really just taking your time, going slow, take your time. And yeah, I'm repeating myself on that one because it's important. If you try to just go fast and you do bad work, it's gonna show. And I'm not gonna sit here and try to get the valves completely clean. Again, I just want a nice smooth surface with most of the grime out. And you can tell because these heads were ported, the dirt really gets into some of these cracks and it's gonna be hard to get it out. But that looks pretty good. So again, you can see the before, you can see where the gasket marks are on there, and then the after. I didn't really do the lower portion on this, but you can kind of see how I got the upper. I could probably scrub this down a little bit better right in here, but you can see this upper area is done really nicely. And I got the inside where the valves are. Looks pretty clean. I'm happy with that. Now, as far as manually clearing out your exhaust valves, or your exhaust ports, I should say, not valves. This is probably one of the more complicated things. Now, you can go to town and try to get in as far into the exhaust port as you possibly can. In this instance, I'm not gonna even attempt that. I would highly suggest if you wanted these to look completely new and really clean, you would take these to a shop that can do a full clean. They have machines and technology that would allow you to get all of that grime and dirt off of there. Considering this is the exhaust port, it's just going to be kicking out the exhaust. So if there's anything loose in there, it's not going into the motor per se. We'll obviously clean this motor or these cylinder heads down before it goes onto the vehicle. But for me, it's just making sure we have a nice flat surface so that when our gaskets and new headers get bolted onto there, it's like new. So again, we're going to lose that really shiny machine finish because we're going to be scuffing it up, unfortunately. But it will still look really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean these up, same method. So obviously you can see the carbon build up in there around the edges. And I'm gonna get a new pad, you can see here, and just lightly go over this. And you'll notice the carbon will come right off. I can just go ahead and do all of these real quick. And again, you don't have to push hard. It's just really light on the surface. And I'm gonna make sure the surface matches where all the machine was, because that just looks weird when it's not, in my personal opinion. But we'll scrub these down. And you'll notice, you can see the scuff pad, it gets pretty worn out. I mean, most people will use these until they wear out, till they're completely see-through. Just depends on what your method is. But in this instance, I just flip it over, use the other side, and go back to work. So now that I got the exhaust port scrubbed down, hit it real quick with my brake clean, get all the excess off. And man, they're not machine perfect shiny, but they're a nice flat surface without any carbon buildup, and that's what we're aiming for. Now it really comes down to the before and after. So you can see before, all the carbon buildup and the markings from the previous gasket to the new setup. Obviously a big difference, and now that we know that the new adjusted gasket's a nice flat surface, it's going to seal nice and properly, and you know the only crap building up in there is from your car running and not the previous. So you can see, obviously that's the bottom side. The inlet side for the air is not going to be too dirty, but the exhaust side, so I can show you before and after there again. Nice clean surface versus the dirty build-up surface. But overall, it's pretty interesting. I've talked with a lot of mechanics and a lot of shops on how they do it. Most of them recommended the scuffing method that I just utilized. Obviously, there's going to be people out there that use different methods, or they use full machining, or they'll have the heads actually remachined just ever so lightly to make sure that it's a nice clean finish. You can go down to your local shop that does machining and parts cleaning. They'll charge you $100 and some odd bucks probably to throw these in a machine and get them spick and span perfect. But even then, you're still gonna have the markings from the previous gaskets that were on there. So in this instance, I wanted those gone. I wanted a nice smooth surface. So I thought the scuffing was the best way to go. If you guys have a different method, post it down below. Let me know what you guys thought about this video, but just something I wanted to throw out there to show you how I'm doing it and how I'm approaching and rebuilding my LT1. So as always, guys, thanks for checking out the video. Likes, comments, shares appreciated. But until next time, I do hope to see you on the road.